Afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Biblio Fitness. Hope everyone's had a great start to another magnificent weekend. So today is going to be like I know the previous video I said part one, but today I am going to just go ahead and play the devil's advocate, quite literally. I've been, thinking a lot about these previous conversations that Ivan has had with good old Smirnikov and now the devil. But obviously the reader leaves it up to your own supposition as to whether this was, and in fact, a delusion or attack of Ivan's conscience, the personification of all that is evil and bad and base about him, or whether it was Satan just clowning him. But the reason I want to talk about the devil's, I'm saying that I'm going to be the devil's advocate today is because as the novel is drawing to a close, while the message is great in itself, to love one another, to be more compassionate, and that's one of the ways that we can combat the nihilism that has now been prevalent across society. I've talked about this many times, and there's plenty of people that have said it as well. It's pretty obvious. And his solution was God. His solution was the ideal that we all can get behind in order to get us to all to love one another. And uh, one of the interesting stories that I remember recently leading up to this episode was when they were talking about when Ivan was making the case that like the courts and how the church should become the state instead of the church being part of the state. And as Father Josimo was talking about, like when it came to punishment, man becomes bitter because it's another man that's punishing him, right? Another man that has committed sin, another man that has done committed his own transgressions. So a sense of bitterness surfaces within the convict, within the one that is accused, within the person that is convicted of whatever crime it may be, because everyone's on even keel, and the fact that one is judging another doesn't really sit well with us, and that's why we continue to conduct the same crimes and the same behavior. And throughout the whole story, and as I said before, his whole notion of God and God being the answer, and how we inadvertently always turn towards God in catastrophe and suffering, we realize how inept and how futile our efforts are. And that is the entire basis of Christianity itself, that you can't find salvation on your own. You need the help of God. You need his eternal mercy, and you need his eternal guidance. And that's why, people willingly throw themselves and put all their responsibilities onto the church and onto God, in order to show them the way. That's the whole message of Christianity, that we deviated away from our natural inclinations, which is naivety, which is bliss, which is, equality for all, and we're all here together, and there's no conflict, there's no hate, there's none of that shit. It's the same message, the same cell that socialism throws at you. And the reason why I want to be the devil's advocate today is because most of the times that the devil is portrayed is as the personification of our cynicism, is the personification of us as us driving to be individuals, us driving to be separate, and us wanting more progress and more success in whatever terms that may be, because at the end of the day, those two words in and of themselves are subjective to the person concerned. And I'm all for individualism, but obviously everything has to be done with an intelligence. We are dealing with a lot of the catastrophe of the hyper individualism, which led to consumerism. But that doesn't mean that I'm all about the collective. We had the Enlightenment for these reasons. We tried to we did the attempt of using reason as a means to find meaning in the world. And you have people like Immanuel Kant, and you had people like Plato, and you have people like Hegel, and you have people like Schopenhauer making, who, all of them were part of the Platonic school of thought that that we ourselves can't see the world for what it really is because we are limited by our own sensory organs. Therefore, everything is just a vague representation of what is real. And with that thought in mind, we really focus on the abstract world over the phenomenal world. And I've just never, we tried this, and that's why I've never understood people that are big proponents of Christianity now, and at the same time dog communism. Oh, look how terrible it was! Look how many people had to die for this paradise to be made. And I'm like, dude, you can make the same arguments against Christianity. Socialism, the concept itself, communism, Marxism, fascism, National Socialism, all these concepts, all these tyrannical governments that sprouted after the end of the First World War, they all had their inspirations from Christianity. They all sell you the same thing. Instead of, but now the end has been reversed. Instead of reaching towards heaven, we are not pulling heaven down towards us, constructing another Tower of Babel, as it were, to use Christian terms. And like I said, throughout the conversation that the devil had with Ivan, I couldn't help but agree. The fact that we really are part of this tragedy, and why do we have all this suffering? Why is God have it made out like this? Like, why is there a Satan? Why is there a need for a negator? And is it just because that's the only way events can unfold? Is it supposed to be just some sort of joke? Is it supposed to be some sort of fun? And it's just like, as the book is drawing to a close, I guess this is my rebuttal. And at the end of the day, you do have to take this with a grain of salt, because at the end, who am I to rebuke someone as gifted as Dostoevsky? But given my current knowledge, it's what I'm doing. I'm not a fan of that. I don't think we need God in order to find compassion amongst ourselves. And I've said this before. I don't think we need an ideal for that. And the same arguments that are made against the villainy that is communism that happened in the Soviet Union, which is entirely justified, of course. I'm not an imbecile. I'm never going to try to defend Marxism, even though there are Marxists out there. But you really can make the same case against Christianity. How many people had to die for this paradise? How many people had to die for the one ideal to be hanging over everyone's head? How many people had to die for us to be brainwashed in this fashion that to the point where Judeo-Christian values seems to be the only option for us, because all the other options were eliminated. The whole collective ideal, and the fact that, Christianity really does sell to the desperate, the despondent, the weak, and the futile, and the tired and the sick, as Nietzsche points out in The Will to Power, because it is a complete contrast to what the world is. In Christianity, it sells you that we're all the same. We're all the same before the love of God. We're all the same stupid creatures. There's nothing special about us. We're just terrible, sinful animals, and we need the guidance of the Lord to get us to salvation. And it's a selling point because, in Christianity, the poor are the champion. And how, back then, excellence and intelligence and enlightenment and salvation were found through rigorous work and discipline. How the people that saw the truth or that were enlightened were philosophers, the people that really studied all their lives, the great minds and the ones before them. But now Christianity is selling it to you without any work involved. We're all enlightened. We're all the same. We all have the truth before our eyes. And just by the word of God alone, there is no hard work. The hierarchy has now been eliminated. And how, to draw away from the temptations of the world, to revel and to champion and revere poverty. And, it really does go against the entire individual tendencies that we have. And that's why I've never been a big fan. I've never really been a fan of this whole collectivism. Like, we are individuals and we should champion our individuality. But you can't really do that in Christianity. We all have to follow this set of rules. We all have to follow this set of values that are rigid and don't adapt and don't. There's no room for adaptability. There's no room for growth in an ever-changing world. Like, how can you have the same values across centuries, across millennia? We're facing a different world now, and to constantly strive towards this truth that we have to do it this way in order to be a good person. And the thing is that we really are all individuals. We're all different, and our values are going to be different based on what we go through, our experiences, our own innate personalities that we've been born with. So that's why, I really do support the devil in a lot of ways. I know at the same time he is mocking Ivan. And, right after the conversation when Alyosha popped up and told him that Smerdyakov had hanged himself an hour before, Ivan goes on and continues raving, talking about how Satan was taunting him because now that everything is permitted, he's torn about this. And how his monumental decision to go to court the next day and proclaim that he is the murderer, that he's the one that put Smerdyakov up to it, that the only, why are you looking to do a virtuous deed when you don't even believe in virtue? When you don't believe in any of this anymore? How Ivan's only going there so he could seek praise from others, how he could be vindicated, and people be like, oh, look at him and his magnanimity, and how selfless he is. Like, he's just looking for pride. He's just looking to stroke his ego and not for doing the right thing. But I really do believe you can do the right thing without needing God. And I feel like that is the brainwash that we've had for 2 millennia now, is that we are lost fools. And we can't figure anything out on our own when we clearly can. And we clearly have advanced in ways never thought possible. The only reason we're in the fucking rut now is just because it's just how it is. Dominant hierarchies and people centralizing authority and power. That hasn't changed just because we've left God in the back burner. It's the same things happened plenty of times before. It happened during the Holy Roman Empire. It happened during the Spanish Inquisition and the conquest of the Americas, and it happens all the time. It's just now out in the open. And now people are really starting to see Christianity for what it was, for what it really is. And it's just a system of control. It's a system to ridicule you and to make you feel guilty for being human. Like, you look at you guilty fool, and you need God and you need the blood of the Lord to grant you salvation. And I'm not a fan. I feel like we can achieve paradise through greatness, and I'm a realist, and I don't think we can reach a paradise for all. I don't believe in this constant striving and progress together as a collective towards this one ideal, which is definitely, synonymous with Greek philosophy as well. How we're all in this, that there's invisible will, this invisible God, this invisible providence that is behind the scenes blindly pulling us towards this ideal, and that was really put in Christianity and turned the notch up to an 11. And there's always been that pushback of us wanting to be individuals and championing individuality and championing the man God, the Ubermensch. That's what I'm for. That's what I'm for. That I'm doing the constant striving and constant progress in what benefits me. And I don't feel like anyone should have any scruples. Like, obviously, I feel like I said, I think we can all have universal rules without the need of an ideal to somehow justify those rules. I feel like we could all just get behind with our own selves. Like, hey, let's not murder one another. Let's not steal from one another. Let's not cheat one another. And while it may happen, we could still maintain our level of cordiality. And like I said, having God does not automatically stop you from doing these things. Now just people don't have the excuse of God for committing these crimes. Look at the Crusades. The fact that all these soldiers were provided with carte blanche when they headed over to the Middle East, doing shit they had no involvement in, and raped and murdered everyone under the name of God. They were lied to, thinking, oh yeah, the Pope told me I could do whatever I want and my soul is saved. And they're raping and murdering and killing and cheating and doing and looting and doing all these things. Like, God and this ideal didn't do anything. Caused more harm than good, in my opinion. They made us, and I've always said that Christianity really is the single greatest catastrophe to ever befall mankind. It has us believe that we are decrepit creatures. It has us believe that we deserve the suffering because it's our fault that we're suffering because of the whole Adam and Eve thing. And if it wasn't for the sanity, if it wasn't for the love of God, we would all be doomed. And I say, who cares? Why can't we just focus what's going on here? Instead of constantly looking towards the other world, be good here, love here. Only care about what's going on in the world around us, taking more account into the world of the phenomenal, since that's the only world we can fucking see, and that's the only world that we interact with. Now, obviously, a lot of people make the case that doesn't solve the case of the soul, and Immanuel Kant is the first one to really bring that to light, the limitations of the logic of using logic, of using reason to find order in the world. There are limits. But that is the question that binds us all. That's a question that's probably going to continue to rattle minds until the end of time, until the end of this civilization or whatever. But, I'm really an advocate for individuality. I'm an advocate and I'm a champion that, we are all different. And some of us are going to suffer more than others. And some of us are not really going to get anywhere. And, and I really don't think that it's a bad thing that there is no paradise coming on earth. Because I just don't see it. I'm a realist. There was never a paradise and there never will be a paradise because we are naturally conflictive animals and we are always going to look for more because it's just a biological trait within us, this constant striving in order to acquire security for ourselves and our families. And there's just going to be conflict. That's just who we are. That's how every animal is, and that's just the nature of the universe, if one can call it that way. The constant devouring of the old in order to make way for the new. And that's what led Schopenhauer to his pessimism. Like, what's the need for striving and constant struggle if you were never going to be fully satisfied? But there's really nothing more to talk about. Like I said, it's a very good argument that how Ivan is battling within himself the convictions that he's made upon himself. That if there's no God, then everything is permitted. How everything is bit back in his face, and how through suffrage, through strife, they always somehow are shown the way to salvation, and how that constant theme of suffering and crucifying oneself in order to get that salvation, just like Jesus, is constantly in play. How you have Dimitri after the whole debacle in the tavern, how he wanted to crucify himself now, how he wanted to go to the underground and sing the secret hymns with fellow prisoners and carry the cross, carry the burden of his suffering himself, just as Jesus did, right? And here we go, Ivan, after that conversation with the devil, wants to crucify himself in a way and really and vindicate himself to himself, but also vindicate his brother and carry the burden of this and the suffering that is going to be ensued by him making those proclamations, even though the suicide of Smerdyakov kind of threw everything out of the window, because now there's no corroborating witnesses and corroborating evidence to substantiate the claim that Ivan would make. And the fact that when he pulled up to the testimony, he was raving and going crazy didn't help anything. You don't have to get pulled out of the fucking courtroom. But at the end of the day, it is suffering. We are going to suffer no matter what we believe in, no matter what we strive for. God and the belief in God is not going to do anything for that. That's why I want to read more Nietzsche, because he's always like will to power really resonated with me. And now that I feel like I'm a little bit more astute with philosophy, I can handle them a little bit better. Pause. But the only way to combat nihilism is through greatness, and the only way to combat nihilism is through self improvement for the betterment of you, not for the betterment of God, not for the betterment of the collective. That's why a lot of people even have beef with Ayn Rand and stuff like that, because she is very and much for the individual. And we've been brainwashed because of Judeo-Christian values that the collective is more important than the individual. That we have to conform in order to in order to have salvation. We have to get rid of our individuality. We have to get rid of our pride. We have to get rid of everything that makes us human to seek salvation. I don't agree with that sell at all. I don't buy it. Why do I have to give up who I am for an imaginary place that 99.99% certain that ain't real? At least I don't know what the Christians say. Don't even get me started on Christianity in a whole. I could probably talk about hours about that shit. But that struggle of individual or the collective. And how, you have people nowadays really talking about giving ourselves up for the collective. You have that same rhetoric espoused by the far left and identity politics. And this is all really in the aftermath of Judeo-Christian values. That the collective is more important than the individual. And the individual, you yourself as an individual, is a guilty, simple person. Therefore, you can't trust yourself. Therefore, you shouldn't even trust yourself at all. Don't trust your emotions. Don't trust your thoughts. Don't trust your actions, because you don't know any better. And you might as well release all of that and give yourself wholly to the Lord and give yourself wholly to the church and all its ridiculous virtues. So that's why I'm on Team Satan a lot of the times, because he is also ridiculing Christianity. He also ridicules all that stuff, and how he loves it when people turn to their nature. And obviously Dostoevsky portrays our human nature as something ugly, which a lot of it is. But we are symptoms of the world around us, and the world is ugly. The world is savage, and the world could be quite unbearable. And we ourselves are that in ourselves, right? So I'm on Team Fallen One. Not, I already said this before, but as the book is drawing to a close, I think it's a great novel, of course, and it's very, very Christian in tone. It's actually become quite insufferable, but I'm going to go through it. Like I said, I really do think it's beautiful, and I really do think that we can do better by helping one another and be more compassionate and not being so selfish. And I know that sounds completely counterintuitive to my previous arguments, but we can't do that. We can't do both. That is who we are as humans. We're always constantly diverging between both. Like, we can't be selfless. We can't help one another, but we can also take care of ourselves. If we don't take care of ourselves, how can we take care of others? So I think those two are synonymous. It's just the orders are reversed depending on what you think, obviously. So that'll be it for today. I'm about to finish up. I'm going to finish this book between today and tomorrow. I'm going to give my closing remarks very soon about this book. And I'm probably going to go ahead and start reading Beyond Good and Evil or Twilight of the Gods by Nietzsche, and then go back to Crime and Punishment a little later. I love the book, like I said, Brothers Karamazov, but I kind of want to take a break from all the constant Christian rhetoric. It's beautiful, but at the same time, it's really, really annoying. So Hope you all have a great day. Hope you all make amazing days. Love y'all and peace.